It's time now for County-Wide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Brad Miller as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives here in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's County-Wide.
Well, good day again, and welcome to the program. It is County-Wide. Brad Miller with you, and we're happy to welcome back into studio a guest we chatted with last year about a couple of things, Jack Fields. And Jack is a deputy Yavapai County attorney, and we say a good day to you, sir.
Good day to you.
Good to have you back with us. Welcome to the Verde Valley once again, coming over from the Prescott offices. The last time Jack was here, we talked about some of the comings and goings and the still bubbling, if you will, medical marijuana issue. Today, we're going to shift gears quite dramatically and talk about something else that Jack is involved with through the county attorney's office and some other folks. Just not long ago, about a week, 2 weeks ago, we told you in our newscasts about a workshop that was held on May 5th. And this was for grandparents, relatives, and others who find themselves raising the children of another person, and this might typically be a grandparent raising a son or daughter's son or daughter, because maybe there's an incarceration issue or some other things. And it's becoming in Yavapai County, Jack, isn't it, not uncommon. There's a real situation here.
There is a real situation, and the workshop that I attended was put on by the University of Arizona Cooperative Extension Office out of Flagstaff, and they estimate in the 4-county area, Yavapai, Flagstaff, Mojave, and Navajo County, there's at least 8,000 grandparents who are raising grandchildren. Those are the ones we know about. There's a lot of grandparents who are, if you will, in denial because, oh, it's just temporary. The children are just staying with me temporarily, and sometimes that temporary staying ends up being several years. So we know that the problem is out there, and we see it in the county attorney's office as well.
And the county attorney's office interest in this matter is what?
Well, we have a victim services component in the county attorney's office. Part of the prosecutor's duties is to look out for the rights of victims. Those rights are written into the Constitution. So we have a whole unit where victim advocates will advocate on behalf of crime victims. A lot of times children are the victims of crime. Sometimes it's endangerment. So you'll get a parent using drugs in front of their children, or driving while intoxicated or under the influence of drugs, or being involved in domestic violence incidents. So all of a sudden now the victims advocates need to deal with these children, and what do we do with them? Typically, they'll end up in the custody of some relative, grandparents, aunts, uncles, those kinds of people. Right.
I want to, just for the sake of argument, it can be a lot of different scenarios, as Jack just described, but I want to say grandparents because maybe that's most typical. It's just as shorthand. So when grandparents find themselves raising little ones, and they can be all ages, not just the babies, a lot of times there's an incarceration issue, or there can be any number of reasons that the parents, the natural parents, the birth parents of the kids are out of the picture.
There can be. Incarceration obviously is one, if one or both parents are sent to prison, and that happens with some frequency. Also, grandparents can pick up the kids just because the parent, I need a place to stay, and oh, here's the kid, and I'll be back in a couple of days, and they don't come back. So now the grandparent is stuck raising the child. There's I don't know if it's worse now than it was back then. Maybe it's more obvious now, but there are a lot of parents who are pretty young themselves and really haven't matured at all, and they just want to go party. They want to go out and do their own thing. And of course, children, for those of us who've had children can be quite a handful and a bit of a burden to take care of, and they interfere with your party life, if you will.
Hope to say. Now let's kind of differentiate. There can be and are situations where the parent slipped up, did something stupid or silly, maybe finds themselves incarcerated for 30 days, decides I don't ever want to do this again, and falls back into the proper order of how things should be. The kids come back and all that. it seems like the bigger problem is when we have maybe repeat offenders, longer terms of incarceration or absence for whatever reason, and the grandparents, it's not a 30-day thing or a 60-day thing. It can become months and even years where the grandparents essentially take over the raising of the child.
Yeah, and they happen in quite a few patterns. As you indicated, hopefully it is just a short time, and the child is there for a vacation, if you will, but it can happen where the parents do something really stupid and end up being in prison for 3, 4, 5 years. Or another typical pattern is you'll get a repeat. The parent will go off and do drugs and drop the kids off with grandparents, and they'll stay there a couple of months, and then the parent will come back. They found a new man or a new woman in their life, and they'll take the kids. That'll go out for 2 or 3 months, and then all of a sudden the grandparents are back in the picture because the parent has dropped off the kids with the grandparent again. So there's all kinds of variety there. That's one of the reasons I talked about kind of some of these grandparents being in denial, because these kinds of patterns don't lend themselves to a person admitting, yes, I'm actually raising my grandchild. But even with those kinds of patterns, yes, they are raising their grandchild, because the parent certainly isn't providing the kind of mature example of raising a child that the grandparent is able to provide.
And if I understand correctly, one of the deeper interests of your office, the Yavapai County Attorney's Office, and what you addressed at the workshop back on May 5th, was helping grandparents then understand the legal ramifications of that pseudo-adoption, if you will, that taking over the custody of the kids. There can become some real legal entanglements maybe down the line when mom or dad decides to drop back in, whether it's a legitimate because they do want to reunite the family, or maybe it's because, well, if I have custody of these kids, I'll get a welfare check. Or there's a lot of ways to play that system. Is that right? Is that where you want to kind of help grandparents understand the legal issues?
We want to make them aware that those legal issues are out there. Now, obviously, as the county attorney's office, we don't give specific legal advice to specific families. We're not allowed to do that.
Right.
But there are some things that we do in the county attorney's office, particularly my division. I'm in the civil division, and part of Sheila Polk's duties, Sheila's the county attorney, are to advise the public fiduciary on guardianship and conservatorship kind of matters. So I'm involved in that, and also we do represent, and this is statutory, some people in uncontested adoption. So I'm familiar with those issues as well. And I believe that the grandparents who are involved in raising these children, yes, they do need to understand what can happen legally and what steps can be taken to protect their role as grandparents. It's not uncommon for a grandparent who's got a child for 3, 4, 5 years. Obviously, they're going to develop a very tight bond with that child. Suddenly, the parent shows up at the doorstep of the grandparent's house and says, I want my child back. Well, legally, if that grandparent hasn't done anything like a guardianship to secure at least some rights, the police are going to say, you need to give that child back to the parent. And I'll tell you, there's nothing more heartrending than having to consult with somebody, which I've done in private practice, who've all of a sudden have developed this close bond with their grandchild, and that kid in the middle of the night is just ripped from their arms, literally. That is a very difficult situation to deal with, and it's really sad to have to tell that person, you didn't establish any kind of legal right to this child. Yes, the parent can do that.
And that's why you're here today.
That's why we're here today. We want to bring stability to the child's life, and one of the ways you can do that is to help the grandparent understand the legal aspects of what they're getting into. When
we talked on the phone about this same subject a few weeks ago, you told me that you've seen cases where judges practically have had tears in their eyes because legally they're bound. The system is set without the grandparent having done what you've described to, I hate to say reward, but I guess that's what it is, reward the child back to that maybe not so good parent.
Well, there's a United States Supreme Court case out there that says that a fit parent is entitled to raise their child the way they want to, and sometimes that includes denying visitation with a grandparent. What we're encouraging the grandparents to do is, if they've got custody of that child, they need to take legal steps to at least ensure that their relationship with the child is something that's looked at by the courts, and also the behavior behavior of the parent themselves. If you don't have at least some involvement with the court system, it's possible, the parents, it's presumed that they have the right to do what they wish with the child, or at least to raise the child the way they wish, I should say.
For grandparents and others, we're kind of using the shorthand term grandparents. If it's aunts, uncles raising the child of another, for whatever the reason may be, and you're concerned about your legal rights, we're going to talk when we come back to the program a little bit about how to kind of get that in motion. Not specifics, but just what you need to know and get you informed. Our guest is Jack Fields, Deputy Yavapai County Attorney. It's Countywide, and we're back right after this.
Here in northern Arizona and throughout Yavapai County, people count on Orkin Pest Control. With over 100 years of combined experience, nobody knows how to protect your home or your business from harmful or annoying pests like the Orkin Man. To start service, contact your northern Arizona Orkin Pest Control. In the Verde Valley, call 567-5100 or Orkin Pest Control in the Prescott area at 775-8772.
Hi, I'm Steve Scourgy with Yavapai Silent Witness. Marcel Gonzalez was murdered on this spot almost 15 years ago, back in March of 1997. We know that there is somebody out there who knows what happened in the alley that night. Yavapai Silent Witness is offering an $11,000 cash reward for information that leads to the arrest of Marcel's killer. For Yavapai Silent Witness, I'm Steve Scourgy.
The pain will not control us. It will never break us, define us, or keep us still. Because arthritis can't beat us if we beat it first. In the fight against arthritis, you need a weapon. What's yours? Visit the Arthritis Foundation at fightarthritispain.org.
Getting closer to nature can get you closer to your family. Go to discovertheforest.org.
Welcome back to the program again, Countywide, and Jack Fields, our guest today, Deputy Yavapai County Attorney, talking about grandparents and others raising the children of others. An absent mom or dad, for whatever reason that may be, finds themselves sometimes raising the child, not just holding on or guarding for a short time, but it can become years in some cases. When you did the workshop in Sedona back on May 5, it was in cooperation with the Extension Office out of U of A.
Yeah.
And
yes.
Let's talk a little bit more about that relationship, how that all kind of came together, and what they do.
Well, they unfortunately, Jan Newton, who's the program coordinator for Kinship Care of Northern Arizona, was unable to be here today, and she, if you get a chance, you should try to bring her here. The Cooperative Extension provides services throughout the state, and there's an office in Flagstaff. They began to notice this problem. Jan and other people up there began to notice this problem of grandparents raising other children, and so they decided to put together what they called Kinship Care of Northern Arizona. You also hear it called CACONA, which kind of sounds like a radio or TV station, I guess. But it's a fairly new concept and a new organization, particularly in the Prescott area. There is a fairly active CACONA group in the Sedona area, and that was what we did. The workshop I attended on May 5th was for the Sedona group. About 25, 26 people attended, and Kokona is really a support group where people can exchange information and get information about some of the issues that they're facing as grandparents, the legal issues that we talked about earlier, also such things as providing, getting benefits for the children. Sometimes there may be Social Security benefits you can get. There may be other kinds of TANF, what's called TANF benefits, and also particularly medical care,
right.
how to get into the access system and to obtain medical care for these children. Sometimes the children, quite frankly, depending on the parents' lifestyle, are really in need of not only basic physical medical care, dental work, you know, checkups, those kinds of things, but they may also have some substantial mental health issues, and how to access those kinds of programs is part of what Kokona can do.
That's something I wanted to touch on a little bit, because that seems to me at the core of this. We've talked a lot here about the grandparents and this is what the focus is. We haven't even talked about these, what could often be damaged goods. It sounds like a cold way to say it, to refer to these kids. You know, you've got the grandparent. You don't know what the relationship with the grandparent and the child was beforehand. They may have lived, you know, out of state or somewhere else in the state, and so just the shock on both the grandparent and the youngster, no matter the age, of getting together and having that's going to be a challenge. Whatever they're bringing with them, as you mentioned, if the home life wasn't very, very good beforehand, you add that to the burden. You add the financial, you add all the things that you just mentioned, and it just seems to me it could be overwhelming for caregiver and the youngster. It just is a storm of trouble.
Well, when you talk to these grandparents, what you'll almost invariably hear is, I raised my children, I did my career, I built my little nest egg, I've got my pension or Social Security or whatever, and all I wanted to do was just sit here and bake cookies or go to yard sales or do whatever they're going to do, and all of a sudden I'm doing something that I did 40 years ago or 30 years ago. I'm raising a child again. And despite the fact that they've got experience doing it, it was so far in the past, they feel lost. It's like, I don't know how to do this in today's world. Yeah. And in many ways, they're absolutely correct. When I was a child, going to school meant one thing. Going to school and what the expectations and what the law requires is very different today. And so they're thrown into that maelstrom. And as you indicated, no matter what the circumstances, unless the parent is unable to take care of the child through no fault of their own, the child is likely seen some stuff that children shouldn't be seeing. Some of the horror stories include the child witnessing the death of a step relative or the other parent at the hands of the man or the mother or father. You know, the mental health issues that brings about can be quite serious. Domestic violence homes with drugs, people revolving in and out, you know, shady characters. Right. So the children can have very serious issues, and the grandparent needs to know how to deal with those issues. Not to mention, as you indicated, now you got another mouth to feed, sometimes diapers involved, you know, the medical care, all of those things. Sometimes
teenagers involved.
Sometimes teenagers involved.
Or close to it. And, it just, you know, and as you said, the grandparents, God bless them for stepping up and doing it, but how could they not have, it's a natural human emotion to feel a little bit cheated. And to, you know, and so you think, well, that's going to come into it too. That we did get set. We are out on our own, and we're kind of ready to go and sail away on that boat and do those things. So it can be a very tumultuous time for everybody.
It can be, and everybody's different. And that's one of the things that I really appreciated about talking with these grandparents, is that Kokona gives them a chance to get together and to share these kinds of different stories and different takes on how they're dealing with the situation, not only their emotions, but what's happening with the child, and also to share resources. Hey, I was able to do this, or I found that resource over here. It's a wonderful program for that, and that's one of the reasons we want to be involved, so that they can understand there are legal issues here that you need to take care of.
Okay, we'll take another short break. We'll come back more with Jack Fields on Countywide right after this.
Here in northern Arizona and throughout Yavapai County, people count on Orkin Pest Control. With over 100 years of combined experience, nobody knows how to protect your home or your business from harmful or annoying pests like the Orkin Man. To start service, contact your Northern Arizona Orkin Pest Control. In the Verde Valley, call 567-5100 or Orkin Pest Control in the Prescott area at 775-8772.
About the dangers of prescription drug abuse. The partnership at drugfree.org.
Hi, I'm Steve Scourgy with Yavapai Silent Witness. Maricel Gonzalez was murdered on this spot almost 15 years ago, back in March of 1997. We know that there is somebody out there who knows what happened in the alley that night. Yavapai Silent Witness is offering an $11,000 cash reward for information that leads to the arrest of Maricel's killer. For Yavapai Silent Witness, I'm Steve Scourgia.
Every year, 2 million kids play doctor by taking pills not prescribed to them. Talk to your kids about the dangers of prescription drug abuse. The partnership at drugfree.org.
We welcome you back to the program again, countywide, and Jack Fields, our guest today, Deputy Yavapai County Attorney. Extension.arizona.edu for more information on the Extension Office and the Kokona program Jack was talking about, kinship care. Of course, you can call the radio station here and we'll get you that information as well. A lot of good stuff. And we'd hate for anybody in this situation to not know about these outreaches and resources. So please do take advantage of what is out there to help you navigate this unbelievably difficult water. Again, your interest in the county attorney's office is legally helping grandparents tie up whatever loose ends they may feel they need to tie up. Is there a first, every case will be different, but is there a first step? How do you kind of get that rolling to secure things?
I think the first step is for the grandparent to realize what's happening here. Even if it seems like it's going to be a short time, if you're looking at repeatedly having to take these children because the parent wants to go off or do something else, certainly in the incarceration scenario, you're going to have that child for some time. So a recognition that, yes, you're going to have some issues, legal issues, health issues in dealing with this child. I think that's the most important thing, is that the grandparent needs to recognize what they've stepped into. And yeah, it's quite likely that it's not going to be temporary in the sense that it's not going to be just a couple of days or a couple of weeks. It might last years. One of the grandparents I talked to on May 5th said, yeah, CPS came by and dropped off the child, and they said it should be a couple of weeks. We're 3 years into it now, and that child is still with them. So what I encourage people to do is you need to look at the legal aspects of it. You need to at least be aware of it. Looking at establishing guardianship so that you have a legal status to enroll the child in school. You can apply for benefits. You can make health care decisions. And it also allows you to kind of slow down the reunification process, particularly if the parent is in a bad situation. The other thing is you're going to need to look at legal aspects, particularly if CPS is involved, because it's a fairly complicated bureaucracy. They're dealing with a lot of rules and a lot of issues. So getting some legal advice about what you can expect from Child Protective Services is very important.
Okay. They call your office, they go through the Extension Office, all of the above? How does it work?
I think they can go through the Extension Office and get a hold of Kokona.
Okay.
If somebody is involved with our office, if the origin is because of an arrest or an incarceration of some kind, they can contact our office at 928-771-3344. And I would go straight to the victim advocates. If you can go to victim services, ask for victim services,
okay.
They can put you in touch with a victim advocate, and the victim advocate can also put you in touch with Kokona as well.
Okay. We said at the top of the show that we're going to kind of use grandparents as a shorthand here because that's very commonly what happens. That, to me, just for the sake of our show, implies a blood relationship or a family thing. Does it become even more complicated if it is not a family member of any kind, or
it becomes,
say, a neighbor?
It becomes much more complicated if it's not a family member, because there are some kind of certain assumptions if you're a grandparent or you're an aunt and uncle.
Right.
Yeah, you're with family. But if you're just the neighbor and you're taking care of this child, getting legal status is absolutely imperative to do, because that child will be ripped out of your arms in a heartbeat.
Okay. A lot to think about, a lot to know about if you're in this situation or figure you may be. Sometimes that happens too. You can see it coming. We thank our guest today. Extension.arizona.edu is one resource to find out a lot more about the subjects on the table today. And we'll talk, I think we'll get Jan in here. We'll talk a little more about her subject that bears repeating. Jack Fields, our guest today, Deputy Yavapai County Attorney. We thank him and we thank you for joining us. It's Countywide. We'll see you next time.